I still remember the way my aunt's living room smelled that day, like jasmine incense and old paperbacks, the kind with yellowing pages and secrets tucked inside. I was 17, still stuck between childhood and whatever adulthood was supposed to be, sitting cross-legged on her scratchy brown carpet, eating stale biscuits and sipping tea too hot to drink. My Aunt Fatima had always been the odd one in the family, the one who never married, the one who lived alone in that creaky two-bedroom house on the edge of town with more cats than furniture. But she was kind, always kind, and she never talked much unless it really mattered. That afternoon, everything changed. She was watching me quietly, her tea untouched. I thought maybe she was just tired, or that I had overstayed my welcome. But then, after a long silence, she said it. Just said it. Like it wasn't going to splinter everything I knew into something unrecognizable. "You know," she whispered, her voice trembling, "your mother tried to kill me once." I blinked, thinking I'd heard her wrong. I laughed, because what else could I do? My mother, the woman who kissed my forehead every night, who never let me go to bed without tucking the blanket around my feet, tried to kill her own sister. "Oh, you're joking," I said, trying to meet her eyes. But she wasn't laughing. She didn't even smile. "I'm not," she replied, "and I've kept it to myself for nearly 20 years. I felt my breath hitch in my throat. Something shifted in the room, like the air got heavier. I stared at her, waiting for some sort of punchline, a twist, anything. But all she did was sit back in her armchair and stare at the wall like she was watching something play out in her memory, something awful. Why would she? I started, but my voice cracked. "She thought I was going to tell someone," she said, "about what she did." My heart was pounding now. My mind was racing. What could possibly be so bad that my mother would consider murder to keep it quiet? "Tell someone what?" I whispered. She didn't answer at first, just took a deep breath, her hand trembling as she reached for her tea and didn't drink it. Her lips were pressed tight, her jaw clenched. And then, finally, she spoke. "Do you remember your cousin Ariba?" The name hit me like ice down my spine. Of course I remembered Ariba. She was my mother's niece, my aunt's daughter, older than me by just a year. She used to braid my hair and steal mango slices off my plate when no one was looking. She disappeared when I was 10. They told me she ran away. "Your mom lied to you," my aunt said, voice low and hoarse. "She didn't run away. She's dead." I felt like the floor had opened under me. Dead. Couldn't breathe. My hands went cold. I tried to swallow, but my throat was like sandpaper. "No," I said, shaking my head. "That's not she ran away. That's what everyone said. The police searched, there were posters, all lies," she said. "Your mother made them lie." I stared at her, mouth open, unable to form words. My memories were crumbling, the stories I had told myself for years of Ariba, living in another city. Maybe starting a new life, maybe angry with her parents, but alive, all of it shattered. "I don't understand," I said. She closed her eyes. "It started with your father. That stopped me again. My father, he had a temper," she said softly. "We all knew that. But no one talked about it, especially not your mother. She always said she could handle him, that he didn't mean it." I could feel my stomach twisting. I'd seen glimpses of that temper, but never directed at me. Just things, doors slammed, dishes broken, silence that stretched like barbed wire across dinner. "I don't know everything that happened," my aunt continued, "but I know Ariba saw something she wasn't supposed to, something your father did." I was gripping the carpet now, my fingers digging into the threads, grounding myself. "What did she see?" I whispered. My aunt looked at me then, her eyes glistening with something between sorrow and rage. "She saw him hurt someone. I think it might have been one of the maids. A girl named Santa. Do you remember her?" I shook my head slowly. The name was vaguely familiar, like something I'd once heard in passing, but forgot. "She was young," Aunt Fatima said. "Only 16. Worked at your house for about 3 months. Then she disappeared. God, I think Ariba found out. Maybe she tried to tell your mother. Maybe she threatened to go to the police. I don't know. But after that, she was gone. Just like that. Gone." The silence between us felt like a scream. "I tried to ask questions," she said. I begged your mother to be honest with me, but she wouldn't talk. She just cried, said Araba was troubled, that she ran away with some boy, but I knew she was lying. Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't wipe them away. I couldn't move. I felt paralyzed by the weight of it all. My mind was spiraling, memories flashing by that suddenly looked different under this new, horrifying light. I started looking into it myself, she went on, asked around. I even went to the police. But every time I pushed, something got in the way. My house was broken into, my car tire slashed. I started getting strange phone calls at night, breathing, threats, silence. And then one night, your mother came to my house. I looked at her, frozen. She was crying, Aunt Fatima said, begging me to stop, said I was going to ruin everything, that our family would fall apart if I didn't let it go. And when I refused, she snapped. Her voice cracked. She tried to push me down the stairs. I gasped. It didn't work. I caught the railing. But I remember her face, she said. I remember what she looked like when she realized I didn't fall. She was scared. Not because I was hurt, but because I was still alive. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. But something in her voice, the way it trembled, the rawness of it, felt real, surreal. She left that night, my aunt whispered, told me to keep quiet or I'd regret it. And I did keep quiet. For years, because I was afraid. Afraid of her. Afraid of your father. Afraid that if I said anything, I'd be next. A long pause. The air felt heavy, suffocating. And now? I asked, my voice barely a breath. Now, she said, looking straight at me. I'm old, and I'm tired, and I can't carry it anymore. You deserve to know who your parents really are. I felt like I was drowning in her words. My world, my childhood, my family was cracking apart like shattered glass. I thought of my mother, smiling at me over breakfast. I thought of my father kissing me goodnight when I was small. I thought of Ariba's laughter, echoing in the garden on lazy summer afternoons. And I thought of the quiet house after she disappeared, and how no one ever spoke her name again. All of it felt poisoned now. But why tell me? I asked, trembling. Why now? Because I saw the way you looked at me earlier, she said, like I was crazy. I can't die knowing everyone believed her lies. I needed at least one person to know the truth. To remember Ariba for who she was, not as some runaway, but as a girl who knew too much and paid for it. I couldn't hold back the sob that burst from my chest. She reached across the table, her hand cold, fingers curling around mine. I'm sorry, she whispered. I nodded, unable to speak, but deep inside, something was stirring, something fierce and afraid and burning all at once. Because now I knew the truth, and I didn't know what to do with it. That night, I didn't go home. I sat in my aunt's guest room, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of mothballs and lavender, staring at the ceiling as shadows shifted in the corners. My mind wouldn't stop racing. I kept hearing her voice over and over. Your mother tried to kill me, and Ariba is dead, and your father had a temper. Everything I'd ever believed about my family felt like a carefully constructed illusion. And now the curtain had been ripped away. Around 3 a.m., I finally gave in to the exhaustion and cried. Not quiet, delicate tears, but gut-wrenching, ugly. Sobs that made my chest ache. I cried for Ariba, for Sena, for the little girl I'd been, the one who thought her family was safe, warm, loving. I cried because I didn't know who I was anymore if everything I came from was built on lies and silence and violence. When I woke up, the world felt different, like it had tilted slightly on its axis and would never be straight again. Aunt Fatima made breakfast parathas and fried eggs, but neither of us had much of an appetite. She looked tired, older somehow, like telling me it taken something out of her she would never get back. I know it's a lot, she said quietly as we sat at the table. A lot is an understatement, I replied, voice hoarse. How did you live with this? Did you just carry it? She looked at me, eyes soft, because I was scared, and because I didn't know if anyone would believe me. Your mother, she's very good at pretending. I stared down at my plate, food untouched. I don't even know what to do with this, I whispered. What am I supposed to do now? she sighed. That's up to you. I've done what I can. The rest is your choice. I hated that answer. Wanted something clear, something black and white. I wanted to know if I was supposed to go to the police, confront my mother, dig up old files and disappearances, and scream the truth into the void until someone listened. But instead, I packed my bag in silence and left around noon. I didn't go straight home. I walked. For hours, through the neighborhood where I grew. Up, where the hedges were always trimmed and the mailboxes freshly painted. Where dogs barked behind white fences and kids rode their bikes without fear. Everything looked the same, but now it all felt like a set on a stage, perfect from a distance. Hollow inside, when I finally walked up our front steps. My fingers hesitated on the doorknob. I wasn't sure I could look at her the same way again, but I had to know. I had to see if anything in her face would give her away. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, humming to herself as she chopped carrots. The smell of curry lingered in the air, and for a moment, I was a kid again back when. Dinner meant safety and laughter, and everything felt normal. "Beta, you're home early," she said, smiling, wiping her hands on a dish towel. I stared at her for a long time, and then very quietly I asked, "Do you remember Ariba?" She froze, just for a second, but it was enough. The knife hovered midair, her smile faltering ever so slightly. "Of course," she said. "Why? She didn't run away, did she?" The room went silent. No clatter, no hum. Just silence thick enough to choke on. She turned slowly to face me, her eyes sharp, guarded. "Who told you that?" There it was. Not denial, not confusion, just calculation. "Did you think I'd never find out?" I asked, voice shaking. "Did you think I wouldn't ask?" My mother stepped toward me slowly, her expression unreadable. "Be very careful about what you're accusing me of," she said in her voice. It was different, cold, like a stranger's. "I'm not accusing," I whispered. "I'm asking." She stared at me for a long moment, and then she smiled. But it wasn't kind. "You're too young to understand the choices adults have to make," she said softly. "Well, sometimes we do things to protect our family, to protect you, protect me." I almost laughed. I was killing. "Your niece protecting me?" I asked, anger bubbling up through my chest. Her eyes narrowed. "You don't know what she saw, what she was threatening to do. She wasn't a child, not anymore. She didn't know what her accusations could have done to this family." "So it's true," I said. "You did it." She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The look in her eyes was enough, and suddenly, I was cold all over again. My skin prickled. My hands shook. I backed away slowly, the air between us feeling like it could ignite. "I trusted you," I whispered. "You were everything to me." Her face twisted. "I am everything to you. You wouldn't have the life you have if it weren't for me. I've sacrificed everything." "You killed her," I shouted. "You let me live in this house with a murderer." "Lower your voice," she snapped, rushing forward and grabbing my wrist. Hard, I flinched. Not because she hurt me, but because I saw at that same look my aunt described the fear, the desperation, and the rage beneath it all. I yanked my hand free and ran upstairs, locked my door, and collapsed onto the floor in a heap of shaking limbs and rapid breath. I didn't sleep that night either. I started digging the next day. Newspapers, archived reports, missing persons. I found Sana's name in an old article listed as last seen working for the family of prominent businessman Asim Malik, my father. No follow-up articles, no resolution, just gone. I found Ariba's name too. Missing, presumed runaway. Case closed within 3 months. I couldn't go to the police, not yet. Not without real evidence. But I started documenting everything. Recording conversations, scanning documents. Every whisper of truth I could dig up, I saved, sent some. Files to a trusted friend, just in case something ever happened to me. I started therapy in secret. I told my therapist everything well, almost everything, enough to begin unraveling the trauma. I moved out as soon as I turned 18. I'd been spoken to my mother since my father passed away 6 months later. Heart attack, they said. I didn't cry at the funeral. Aunt Fatima died a year after. That peacefully, in her sleep. She left me a box full of letters she'd written, but never sent. To Ariba, to the police. To me, I read them all, every single one. Sometimes I still hear Ariba's laughter. I see her smile in dreams, I imagine. What she would have become: a teacher, maybe, an artist, a mother. She never got the chance, and now I carry her story with me, because I have to, because someone has to. Remember her? The scariest thing a family member ever told? It wasn't just that my mother tried to kill someone. It was realizing how easily the people we love can hide monsters behind their smiles, and how long we live in the shadows before we learn to see in the dark.